Hello, my name's Tom Walker. Welcome to That'll Be the Day. In this podcast, I'm going to be talking to a visually impaired woman who's using social media to provide help and peer support to other blind and partially sighted people. But before we hear from Joe Fishwick, if you like the music at the start of this podcast, it's a track called That'll Be the Day by the Liverpool band Avow. And as always, at the end of these podcasts, I'll be playing a track by the band, and to find out which one it is, stay tuned. In 2014, Joe Fishwick and a couple of others set up VI Talk, and since then, it's gone from strength to strength. Over 3,000 blind and partially sighted people have signed up. Discussions can range from cooking, sport, and to more general issues related to visual impairment. When I spoke to Joe a couple of days ago, I started by asking her how the lockdown had been for her.
Yeah, different. I've been working from home. We had to change things quite a lot for VI Talk because obviously we couldn't do face-to-face events, but you get used to it, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, tell me about VI Talk, Joe, because it started, 7 years ago, and then became a charity, what was that, in 2016, if my maths are correct. So tell me, why you set it up and what you hope to achieve with it.
So I'd been on my Past Pupils Association committee as membership secretary, and myself and the chair were doing podcasts for the school and for the past pupils, and we just kind of thought we could take this to a wider audience. And so we set up VI Talk, and we set up a Facebook group, a Twitter profile, and did monthly podcasts. And we did that for a couple of years. And then I kind of thought, you know what, we could probably do more if we were a charity. So I applied to the Charities Commission. Unfortunately, they liked it. And we became a charity on February 17th, 2016. And we've gone from there, really.
What difference did becoming a charity actually make in practical terms?
I think it kind of gives you a bit more kudos in the sense that people take you a little bit more seriously when you're a charity. So there's that aspect. It does mean that you can apply for funding. So when we wanted to do face-to-face events with speakers, and we've done some arts and crafts events so that people can have a go at things that perhaps they wouldn't get the chance to do otherwise, we can apply for funding for that. And we've been very lucky that Thomas Pocklington Trust have supported us a great deal with that. We didn't even have sort of a laptop to use for VI Talk, and we got funding to pay for that. So it opens up avenues for you a little bit.
You mentioned there the face-to-face events, but I think of you primarily still, I think, as an online forum. What kind of issues do you discuss online? And then we'll talk about the face-to-face events afterwards.
Okay, so we now have 9 Facebook groups. We've just launched our gardening and nature group. So the main group, which now has 3,400 plus members, that's the one that we kind of give it the tagline, sharing ideas, information and support. So that's where people can ask questions about anything really, technology, personal questions, travel, anything. People ask for support with all kinds of things. And then that got really busy. So we opened VI Talk Resources, which is where people can share events, other groups and sale items. Because you can imagine if all that went in one group, it would just be crazy. And people asking for support, their post would very quickly slip down the feed. So that's why we opened VI Talk Resources. Then we've got VI Talk Sport, which is what it says on the tin really. Travel, arts and crafts, music, the kitchen, the book club, and now gardening and nature.
Must take quite a lot of work moderating all of this stuff.
It does. We've got 3 trustees at the moment, but we've also got some moderators who just help with the Facebook groups. So that's really good to have their help. We have support. We have some of the team who do Twitter, so they share the load, kind of doing a few days each. We do LinkedIn as well and Instagram, so we kind of share it out and everybody does a bit. So it works quite well, but it does get a bit crazy sometimes.
What feedback do you get from your visually impaired members, Joe? I mean, what are they saying to you?
I think They're saying that it is well run. We do our best. I mean, occasionally it can get a little bit feisty. People, obviously people get quite heated, don't they? And debate is great, but when it gets a bit more than that, we obviously are very careful about that. But with a small team, that can get quite complicated. So we do ask members if they see anything that isn't appropriate, that they, you can report posts to the admin team. So we do rely on members a little bit to do that. And they are really good. Some of the members are great at flagging up things that they think perhaps we need to look at, that we haven't perhaps noticed. So that's really good. That works quite well.
We started by talking about the lockdown and how things have been for you. What impression have you had from your visually impaired members of how lockdown has been for them?
I think during lockdown 1, there was a lot of isolation, a lot of fear. So we started doing Zoom chats 3 times a week to try and break down a little bit of that isolation so that people could get some peer support from each other and, some friendship. That worked really well. And we're still continuing to do those 2 or 3 times a week. I think there's been confusion as well because we've kind of been in and out of lockdown and people have been a bit like, what's happening next? Obviously, the whole getting food and supplies in the beginning was complicated. So there was a lot of support around that, people posting how you could get, your priority slots. Now it's more about the vaccine, who's had it, who hasn't, should VIs have priority or not. So that gets a little bit heated sometimes. So we do discuss that quite a lot on the Zoom chats. All of that has been big business, I suppose, for the last year.
You've just spoken there, Jo, about isolation of blind and partially sighted people. How big a problem is that more generally, setting aside the lockdown?
I think everyone's journey is different, and I think some people are very confident about getting out and about and other people aren't, and I think you could probably say that across the whole population really. Some people are happy just being in their own 4 walls and other people like to be out there and exploring. I think for some blind and partially sighted people it is incredibly difficult to get out and about and to be as independent as perhaps you would like. So I think some people are isolated. And I think the problem is that, yes, we're mainly an online charity and not everybody is online. So I think we need to remember that, people need support offline as well, which hopefully, we do a little bit and hopefully other organisations and charities do as well.
Why do visually impaired people in particular appear to suffer badly from isolation? Is it something about visual impairment or society more generally?
Oh gosh, I think that's a really big question. I think from my perspective, I guess for our age group, probably most of us went to specialist schools, and so your friends tended to be in that school environment, especially if it was a boarding school. So when you went home, you didn't necessarily know many people in your area. And I think that's quite difficult to get out in your local area, especially if you've got little or no sight. I think it's hard to get involved with your community, and it does take some courage to do that. So I think charities now and organisations are doing quite a lot, from what I see on Twitter and things like that, to kind of get people out and about, get people involved with groups. And I mean, even now online, there's a lot, there's dance groups and theatre groups that people can get involved with. So it's all helping to break down that isolation a little bit.
Now, before the lockdowns, you held quite a few face-to-face events, including one here in Liverpool, or maybe more here in Liverpool. Tell me about those events. What did you aim to achieve with those?
So we started off by doing face-to-face events where we asked people to come in and speak. For example, we did one at QAC in Birmingham, and we had Ben Musselrose did a big speech about and presentation about technology around televisions and how to access TV, and that was amazing. I think people got a lot from that. We've had CEOs of charities, organisations speaking about their services. We did do one in Liverpool. That was brilliant. We had Bradbury Fields doing a talk, the lovely Louise from Bradbury Fields.
Oh, yes, I know.
Yeah, we had, oh gosh, I'm going to forget his name now, aren't I? Dave, I think it was Dave from Daisy.
Kelly.
That's it. That's the one. And Yeah, we had lots of speakers in, and then we had made sure that we had lots of time for people to spend together, to share their stories, to have a chat about all kinds of things. We always try and provide sort of free buffet lunch and refreshments so that there's no cost other than getting to and from the venue for members. And then we kind of thought, we've got an arts and crafts group. It would be really nice to offer some events where people can have a go at doing arts and crafts. So we did a couple of those. We did one, the first one of those was at Bradbury Fields as well. And then we did one in Swindon, and they were really well received. So people got to do card making, they got to play with air dry clay, which I think people found quite therapeutic. And they got to make bath bombs, and it was really well received and really enjoyable. And what was lovely was that the members, the people who attended, all helped each other. So perhaps somebody with a bit more sight would kind of pitch in and help somebody who had no sight. And it was a real sort of community feel about the place, and just really lovely.
And it's hard to underestimate the importance of peer support for visually impaired people, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I think it's so important. As soon as we can. It probably won't be this year, if I'm honest, but hopefully next year we'll be able to start those face-to-face events again, and we're all really looking forward to it.
The face-to-face events felt like a real development of the work that you did, a real extension, if you like, of your remit. What other plans do you have for VI Talk?
I think at the moment we're just going to continue as we are and see how it goes with sort of coming out of COVID. We do want to do, as I said, the face-to-face events again. And that may be that we do the arts and crafts again. It may be that we think about other ideas. We may do, survey the members and see what they would like. We'll definitely continue with the Zoom chats. That may not be quite as often. We'll kind of assess how they're going and how busy they are. The groups, like I say, we've got 9. Never say never. We may have another at some point, but at the moment that's not in the pipeline because we've only just opened the gardening group. But we're always open to ideas, and if anybody wants to, give us any ideas or contact us, and we're always happy to hear from people.
So you're very open to suggestions from members, I'm guessing?
Yeah, we do try to be. I mean, we were once asked if we'd open a dating group on Facebook, and we did decline that idea because with all the safeguarding issues around that and things like that, we just felt that was too big a thing for us to do, and we'd leave that to other people to cope with.
And I guess with a smaller group of trustees, it would be quite hard to take care of issues like safeguarding.
We are doing safeguarding training for all of the team over the next couple of weeks. So they're going to do some up-to-date safeguarding training, and that's for all the volunteers, whatever they do, whether it's facilitating a Zoom chat, moderating the Facebook groups, or doing Twitter, they will all do safeguarding training. We're lucky that one of the trustees is a ROVI, Rehabilitation Officer for the Visually Impaired. So she's well versed in safeguarding. So we're going to run some safeguarding training. So we are very careful about that. We have all the policies in place. So we have a GDPR policy, safeguarding for adults and children, diversity and equality. So all of that is covered.
I bet when you started off in 2014, you never imagined that you'd have documents full of policies.
Oh, I didn't know the first thing about running a charity, honestly. And sometimes I do ask myself why I did it, because I'm starting a full-time job next Monday. And so I'm going to be busy.
I mean, I imagine when you've been going to work, because I know you've been working full-time previously, you've probably been coming home, having your tea, and then sitting down to do, 2-3 hours VI Talk work.
Yeah, that's usually the case, because I do facilitate Zoom chats myself as well. All the trustees are hands-on. We all pitch in with, moderating the groups. We run Zoom chats. We have a text chat as well. I should mention that on a Tuesday evening for anybody with dual sensory loss, so that they can, because they don't always, find it difficult they quite often find it difficult to cope with a Zoom chat. So we have a text chat on a Tuesday evening. We also have our crochet club as well, which is Monday and Friday afternoons. So people are learning how to crochet and knit, and that is really successful. And that's our volunteer, Helen, that runs that with one of our trustees, Sam. And we've just got some new members on there this week. So that's proving to be, we've had some really lovely feedback about that one.
You've been very visible as a group during the lockdown. How important do you think that has been for blind and partially sighted people? Because There has been some criticism more generally that other organisations have been less available.
I think a lot of organisations at the start, there was that feeling of panic because we were sent into lockdown so quickly. It was like one day you were there, and for example, in work, I was working as an iClinic liaison officer at a very busy hospital, and one day I was in clinic, and then you're told, right, go home, and it was like, okay, what do we do now? So everyone had to kind of think outside the box. And I think there was that feeling of panic at first. What do we do? How can we continue? What can we do to make things better? And I think because we're online, that made it quite easy for us because we just carried on doing what we were doing. Yes, we couldn't do the face-to-face, but we used a little bit of the money that we would have used for a face-to-face event to buy a Zoom license. We put an advert out for Zoom facilitators to volunteer with us, and we were really lucky. We got very quick response because people weren't able to go and do their ordinary voluntary work, so they wanted something to do. So we got very lucky with that. So we do have an amazing team. I'd name them all, but I don't want to risk forgetting somebody.
Yes.
But yeah, I think it made it easy because we are mainly online, so we were able to kind of just continue and just open it up for people to talk about what was worrying them, what concerns they had. And I think because some of the team work in the field, we had that knowledge and we had first-hand experience, but also we were able to grab information about, like the priority slots, where to go for help. So we were able to post all that in the groups and online. So I think that helped as well.
You've been very nimble during the lockdowns. That's the thing I've noticed about you, that you've been able to respond very quickly to situations in a way that the larger organisations don't appear to have been able to do.
I mean, I'm not going to criticise anybody, obviously. I think it's difficult. It must be very difficult. We're very small. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, we're tiny. We don't have any employees, so everyone is voluntary. So I think from a funding point of view, we need a very, very small budget. So that means that we can be quite nimble. We can be quite responsive quite quickly. When you've got employees to think about and all that, that must be very, very difficult. I can't imagine what that's like.
Final question then for you, Jo. You have a lot of experience of working with blind and partially sighted people. You're an iClinic liaison officer, at least until next Monday. So you know a lot of the issues. What needs to be done generally to improve the lives of visually impaired people in this country? What changes, if you could make any changes, what would they be?
Oh gosh, employment is the word that springs to mind, I think. And I know there is some work being done to help people find employment and to help them, with CVs, with training. But I think that the figures are scary. That I think at the moment, is it between 70 and 80% of all visually impaired people of working age are unemployed at any given time. Yeah, very frightening. And when I meet people and speak to people, they've got amazing skills, they've got amazing qualifications and a heck of a lot to offer. And I think it's just incredibly sad that they don't get that opportunity. I think more needs to be done with that. I think there is more being done about social isolation. So there's, there are groups that people can join, like and online, like I said, there's been dance classes and theatre groups and all kinds of things that are happening for people to get involved with. But I think for self-esteem, for people to have that confidence and independence, it's got to be, helping people find employment, helping people feel fulfilled, I think. And that's a big ask, I guess. And I really don't know how that gets done, what the best way forward is. I'd like to think that all the charities and organisations would work together. In my view, that's what we should all be doing. We should all be supporting each other to support blind and partially sighted people and bringing all our skills together. In an ideal world, that would be something that I would really like to see happen.
That's probably a separate podcast, I think, Jo.
Yeah.
But the one point I would pick up on, and I totally agree with you, is that I've met hundreds, if not thousands, of blind and partially sighted people in my work for In Touch and elsewhere. And I never cease to be amazed by the talent that there is in the VI community. I don't know what you think of that.
Huge talent. And whether that's, for the podcast, we've interviewed musicians, We've interviewed budding comedians, and then we've interviewed people who have a really good, good head for business. So many skills, so diverse, and just such a shame that they're not getting to shine really.
And the other thing I was going to mention to you is the online radio stations. Of course, there's Ultimate Radio, the Phoenix, and others, and they do a fairly similar thing to you, I guess, in some respects.
Yeah, they do a great job, and the guys on the internet radio stations, I know they love it. They all seem to really enjoy what they do and enjoy entertaining people. And I think they're always encouraging people to get involved with that. I think it's a really good thing.
So there we go. If you're an employer and you're looking to replace or recruit a new member of staff, Joe and I think you should look at visually impaired people. What do you think, Joe?
Absolutely, definitely.
And just finally, Joe, if anybody wants to contact VI Talk or get involved, what's the best way to do that?
So you can email us. That's info@vitalk.co.uk. You can check out our website, which is accessible, which is www.vitalk.co.uk. And on there, we've got a web directory of services and support available for blind and partially sighted people. If you want to follow us on Twitter, it's @VI Talk Podcast, all lowercase. And if you want to look at any of the groups on Facebook, you can just search for VI Talk and they should all come up. If not, drop us an email and I can send you the links. And if you want to be added to our newsletter mailing list or our Zoom chat mailing list to find out what Zoom chats are happening over the next couple of months, you can email us as well and we can send you all those details.
There is no shortage of ways of getting in touch with VI Talk. Joe Fishwick, thank you very much indeed. And good luck with VI Talk and future developments and progress there. And also, good luck with your new job. I know you start on the 19th of April. So, Joe Fishwick, thanks very much.
Thanks, Tom.
Now, a That'll Be The Day podcast wouldn't be a That'll Be The Day podcast without a track at the end. This is Dust on My Halo by The Vow.
There's dust on my halo. There's dust on my halo. There's a lifeline that follows me right down the centuries and burns like a quasar within me. If you could see into my soul, there's a darkness that shines through the dust on my halo. I'm trying to learn how to say no. If you could see into my soul. But oh my God, Lord of all mercy, why would you desert me? There's no reason for learning to think in a straight line. The pleasure and pain would be still mine if I could see into your soul. Where the truth goes, finally fading away now. The light of the moon by the day now. If I could see into your soul. But oh my God, Lord of all mercy, why would you cast me? There's dust on my halo. There's dust on my But oh my God, Lord of all mercy, why would you desert me? There's a lifeline that follows me right down the centuries and burns like a quasar within me. If you could see into my soul. Where the truth goes, there's nothing to see or to say now. We might as well all turn away now. Beware of the place places we go.